Those with learning disabilities need meaningful leisure and skill-building activities, as well as supported employment where appropriate, and they need to be supported by sufficient allied health professionals of different disciplines. Families need to be much closer involved in care planning and decision-making. There needs to be a fundamental and meaningful shift in the practice of co-production, and training needs to be delivered to staff as well as offered to families. There needs to be a commitment across the system and at board level to reducing the use of restraint and a greater use of psychological input to avoid its use. Any use of restraint needs to be monitored, and there needs to be post-incident analysis and learning. Any use of seclusion as a restricted practice should be an exceptional event and subject to a serious event audit. Organisations providing care and support for autistic people and those with learning disabilities need to be aware of the risk factors that predict the likelihood of abuse, and they need to plan how they will respond to such issues. Families and service users need to be supported where necessary in making complaints. They need professionally trained advocates, better information on how to record record problems, and how to take them forward. All complaints need to be recorded electronically so that the data is available for audit and analysis to detect themes. The use of CCTV is a difficult and contentious issue, but every facility should be considering its use, and there should be appropriate consultation with families. CCTV in private areas of the facility should also be considered, but should only be used when it's in the best interests of the service user. Oversight and analysis of CCTV footage must sit outside the setting in which it's recorded. Adult safeguarding has not been given the status it requires, and it should be recognised as a delegated statutory function equivalent to child protection. There needs to be a greater focus and understanding of staffing required to meet each service user's needs. There needs to be an integrated workforce plan based on the assessed needs of each service user, and careful consideration needs to be given to the mix of registered and unregistered staff, as well as allied health professionals. All healthcare assistants working with service users with learning disabilities require specific training. The education of trust boards for both executive and non-executive directors needs to be improved, especially in relation to social care governance. And the collective performance of boards needs to be reviewed regularly. Boards need to get better at receiving confidential reports from members of staff about concerning behaviour, and we've made specific recommendations to improve this significantly. When a service user is being resettled or moved, there should be a key individual appointed to ensure the service user and the family are consulted, and who can advise them and keep them fully informed. There must be a statutory duty of candour imposed across the whole system. Now, this was recommended by another inquiry in 2018, and we know the Assembly is already considering this, and there are complexities to the debate. But with respect, they need to accelerate this, decide how it's going to be applied, and legislate urgently. Finally, there is an issue in the current Adult Protection Bill in relation to the tests to be applied when prosecuting an organisation in circumstances where one of their employees has caused deliberate harm to a patient. It is, in our view, too complex and difficult to prosecute in its current draft form, and we've suggested a simpler offence that is more easily provable. In order to avoid conviction, an organisation will need to be able to demonstrate that they had taken all reasonable and practical steps they could to avoid the harm that occurred. Now, that would, we think, have a significant effect on how all healthcare organisations regard risk. That is a very brief summary of just some of the recommendations, but each recommendation will need careful and focused consideration. Finally, I would like to address the families directly, many of whom I've met, but I haven't seen for some time now. Today is not the end of the road in relation to what happened at Muckamore. For many of you, it will just be another beginning. Many inquiries look at a single past event or a series of past events which by the time the inquiry starts are finished. But this inquiry is a little different. We know that every day of your lives you've been fighting to make the lives of your child or your sister or your brother safer and better. And we know that there are still allegations of abuse at other facilities in Northern Ireland. We recognise that your fight has not ended because you will continue in your struggle to get the best for the people that you love. This report should be a powerful tool to assist you. You may not agree with everything in it, and you may have wanted more from it, but I can say that our conclusions and recommendations are all supported by the evidence we heard. They're practical, doable, and effective. So I ask you to use this report and the significant effort that's gone into it from so many different people to good effect. I have no doubt you will keep the pressure. I have no doubt you will keep the pressure on the politicians and the Department of Health and all those organisations identified in the report and in its recommendations. You have power to make your voices heard, and this report is intended to help you to be heard. One final note in relation to the future. As you may have seen in the executive summary, we do not specifically address in detail the issue of redress for individuals. Importantly, however, we do recommend that the Department of Health should set up a working party to consult patients, service user groups and the families of those who've suffered abuse at Muckamore. That will ensure that the issue of redress to meet the needs of the victims can be considered and looked at in a properly focused manner. Looking beyond this report, I thought about whether there was anything we could do for those with learning disabilities and people with autism to acknowledge what happened at Muckamore, and whether there's any initiative we could support to mark the closure of this inquiry. I've been in discussion with Antrim Castle Gardens. Many of you will know them. They're relatively close by and beautiful, and they're very well adapted for those with disabilities. They have 2 sensory gardens. They've been very accommodating, and I'm very hopeful that a special place is going to be created there for anyone with learning disabilities, and particularly for those who have experienced life at Muckamore Abbey Hospital. I can now formally say the report is published, and the restrictions on reporting are now lifted. An electronic copy of the report will shortly be available on the inquiry website, together with an easy-read version of the executive summary. There are also paper copies of the easy-read version if anybody would like to take one home for their own relatives. I hope that the Department of Health will ensure that the report is available via their website, and that the Belfast Trust will do the same. In order to allow for the privacy of others and to respect the emotional impact that today will have on many of those attending, I ask that no media interviews are conducted either within the premises nor immediately outside the front door, to allow people who wish to leave without public attention. That concludes this hearing. Thank you again. All right.
At the Ramadan Hotel in Belfast. Testing, sound, Ramadan Hotel, Belfast.
Yeah, we can't be a decision whether being part of DNA, if you agree with me. So you got your mic,
I'm going to be able to come down, but just before your next day. I'm sorry, for 4 times.
112.
What's that?
You happy now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One more.
1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 9 8 7 6 5 4 3 2 1.
That's what you lost.
Were you doing the half or the 10? 10. How'd you get on?
It was
That was really warm, mate.
I was only quick going into it.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah, it was very, very, it was really humid. Like, I mean, it's not bad. Like, really not bad. Yeah. 1 2. Oh, right, okay. No, not yet, not yet. Anybody else need a sound check? Everybody happy? Jim, you happy with sound?
I'm good, thank you, yes.
1 2 1 2 check 1 2. I'll be speaking at this level. 1 2 check 1 2. Everybody happy? 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 check 1 2 check 1 2 check 1 2 check 1 2. You got it? Okay, no worries.
All right. Right on this side. Easier to do this. The thing is, we stood around outside of this room was here. Nobody could make a decision at that moment. The lawyers, nobody could get a decision. Just they didn't settle.
Which one is parking?
Sorry, I'm setting up. Sorry, I'll talk to you in a minute.
Just look towards me a wee bit. Look a wee bit more.
Oh no!
We actually got you over to say for you. But they're just telling me to try every day.
All the time.
anyway, just to take off. We went to Jordan told her all she said, Jordan, she's one of the races, part of the and she, that's what
It's at the Royal. Bad news, but
Sorry, we're going to take one of these tables away. When we put it onto this table, is that okay? So we move up?
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take off on that, yeah?
Yeah, I'll take that one.
The one closest to the door. Just that one's going? Yeah. Okay. That's telegraphed. So just shifting it on to...
Is that there's nothing on that table there?
No, no. I just shift that along instead of moving on to the area. Okay.
Roughly the middle, yeah.
Aye, yes.
Just two.
Just two, thank you.
Granddaughter, she started walking. Any other one? She's just good. A couple of months older today. We are still
I'll bring it up a wee bit more.
More that way?
Yes, about there.
Yeah. Progressively more through it. It just doesn't have I think that I do.
The only thing we did was sit down and interview the answer. More like That's all you need to do.
That's kind of case to me, and what she did,
Yes, I hope that yeah. Just that's been nice. No.
Yes, that's right.
It's basically baby tapas. Great strawberries. The real family. I'm going to spend it tomorrow.
Yes.
When you go on, short.
It hasn't started yet. I know you're recording it, no, but
You're like a yard in the apple. I was just yes, you are my we say my share. And if I was to say my share, I would say
well, I mean, I was here before that, and I've seen it was all sort of then it was way again.
well, I mean, after you know how many.
Well,
seriously consider
But that contradicts.
Hello. Yeah, sorry to keep you. I'm really sorry. Just, you see, trying to get your head wrapped around it. It's just been a bit of a nightmare, so I do apologise.
We were getting.
For Glenn and our senior counsel.
Oh, yeah, then it's not everybody in it. First thing
New word, D-A-L-E-S.
She was adopted. She is Chinese.
That's right.
That's wrong.
We shut the door to
Yeah,
avoid the
we'll shut
background
the door.
noise.
Can we shut the door? Or?
Lovely. Yep, second bit. Let us know when you're ready.
Yep, we're ready.
Thank you all for coming to hear our response. While we were in the back room, we drafted up a written response as follows. The families of patients abused at Muckamore Abbey Hospital today respond to the report of the Muckamore Abbey Hospital Public Inquiry, which sets out a damning catalogue of systemic abuse, governance failure, and a breakdown in the care of some of the most vulnerable people in Northern Ireland. For the families who campaigned for years for the inquiry to be established, the report and its 106 recommendations confirm the case that we have consistently made all along. The families said from the outset that abuse was widespread, prolonged, and that safeguarding and external inspections failed to protect patients. That the warning signs, which were escalating peer-on-peer assaults, chronic understaffing, the overuse of restraint practices were misused. Patients were left zombified by the inappropriate use of as-needed medication and were placed in seclusion as a punishment, and that the long-term policy of moving people out of the hospital and into the community was never matched by the funding, planning or workforce needed to ensure it was safe. For the families, the report is the formal confirmation of a truth we have lived and fought to expose for years. For years, these families were told they were exaggerating, they were simply not believed at all. Today, the inquiry has confirmed what we always knew, that their loved ones were abused on a staggering scale, and that the failure was systemic, that the warning signs were there to be seen, and that those in power to stop it did not. This report belongs to the families and to the patients, including those who did not live to see it. They were right, but being vindicated is not the same as receiving justice. The families also renew their call for a dedicated redress scheme for the patients of Muckamore Abbey Hospital and their families, to identify the full and lasting impact of the abuse on patients, to provide the support, treatment and counselling that survivors and families require, and to deliver financial redress that reflects the gravity and duration of what was suffered. The families will not stop until there is real change and meaningful redress for those who were harmed. Anything less would be yet another insult to our loved ones. Today we call on the Minister of Health to meet with us urgently. We need to know how all of this is actually going to be delivered. Thank you.
The families welcome a number of the inquiry's recommendations as reflecting the changes that they called for. These include a statutory duty of candour for Northern Ireland, which they have long argued for and which Northern Ireland alone in the UK still lacks. This would make it easier to prosecute organisations that fail to prevent harm to service users. Placing adult safeguarding on a statutory footing, the use of CCTV as a safeguarding tool. This inquiry would not have happened were it not for CCTV. A named person responsible for each service user's care and for liaison with their family. But the families are clear that recommendations alone will not deliver justice. Their central concern throughout has been accountability and real change, not only of the frontline staff. While the inquiry recommends making it easier to prosecute organisations, the people in senior leadership, management and oversight roles who held the power and the duty to prevent this abuse have so far faced no personal consequences. The Chair has said responsibility to act on the recommendations now lies with those who lead, manage and deliver health and social care across Northern Ireland, and implementation must begin immediately. There must be no further delay, no dilution and no sidestepping. The families agree completely, and they will be holding the Minister and every organisation named in this report to these words. We have seen far too many reports, welcomed in principle and then quietly shelved. These 106 recommendations must be implemented in full, properly funded and independently and rigorously monitored. They want timeframes. Paragraph 53 of the report sets out the inquiry share fears that the families hold, and I quote, "Serious concern as to whether the Belfast Trust has the capacity to change its ways independently and without external forces bringing it to bear. The families want to know that recommendations are accepted by the Department of Health and that there are timescales within which they must be delivered, and a mechanism has been established to inform the public about implementation. For too long there has been a lack of transparency and they want that ended. The care and treatment of vulnerable people is a matter of concern not just to their families but to all of us." The families would also stress that this is not only about the past. Some of their loved ones remain in Muckamore Abbey Hospital awaiting resettlement, while others in the community placements, which the families regard as no safer than the hospital itself. The report finds that the resettlement process was fundamentally flawed. The families were marginalised and excluded from decisions, and that led to unplanned readmissions. Finally, the families wish to remember all those who suffered at Muckamore including those and 8 of our CPs who have since died, and to pay tribute to the patients and relatives whose courage made this inquiry possible against massive resistance.
On that point, the clients who passed away before the inquiry was ever even established, or passed away before this report was delivered, so that they would know what an independent inquiry had to say about their experience. Peter Riley's mother, Sarah Beggs' sister, Maura Ebbs' brother, Danny Diamond's son, Carl Riley's aunt, Angela McCavanagh's brother, Margaret McGuckin's brother. They were people and they suffered, and this report is a testimony to their experience.
Sorry, Mr. Brown. Sorry, Laura Hogan from RT News. You said that vindication is not justice. What does justice look like for you and the other families?
Justice will present itself in many formats. Justice will be the rigorous implementation of a report. We've already seen the pushback coming from the Belfast Trust. It's up to the local politicians to stomp that out. And if necessary, as the report recommends, bring in external influence to enforce it to do so. But that's only one part. It'll be the legislation, robustly and carefully crafted to protect the vulnerable. It'll be the legal cases which have been stymied with the barristers' strike, obviously. Obviously, we would like them to progress. I mean, there's roughly about 125, 130 files for prosecution with the PPS. And the police would readily admit these cases will be running on for another 10 years. So justice comes in many forms, and we want to see it. We would love to see the senior management up in the Crown Court, not just those at the very bottom of the pile that maybe allegedly done abuse. We would love to see senior managers right up to the Belfast Trust, doctors, everybody held accountable. Everybody claimed they saw nothing, they knew nothing. Take your amnesia tablets before you come to the inquiry. You can't remember anything. This needs to change, and change now.
Sorry, how important will accountability be?
Without accountability, this is all a waste of time. That's the bottom line. There's never been accountability. The people in senior positions do not recognise accountability. It's something they talk about, but they don't believe in it. It's not for them, it's for the plebs at the bottom. That's the problem.
And could you remind us just of your own involvement in this whole process, if you could?
In what way?
Just, I suppose, in your own personal circumstances.
Basically, I'm the father of Aaron Brown, where this whole disaster started. I was told when I met senior management that it was a one-off incident. There was only 2 or 3 bad apples. There's never an incident like this in the history of the unit since its formation. I didn't believe the stories. I couldn't get a straight answer on any question that I put to them. So I told them straight, I'm going to the police. You better keep the footage, because there's signs everywhere you're under CCTV. Keep your footage for the police investigation. I was told the cameras don't record. Now, if you now go down the road, there's 300,000 hours, over 300,000 hours of footage. There's multiple suspects, multiple wards, multiple ranks, and it's just been a total disaster. And the one-off incident that involved my son, it's now proved to be, there was hundreds of incidents. There was red flags everywhere, but everybody was wearing blinkers. Nobody wanted to see. There's nobody as blind as those that don't want to see. That's an old quote.
Monia, can I ask you, in the scale of public inquiries, where does Muckamore rate, both locally and nationally, when it comes to the abuse of vulnerable people? In your experience, where does this one rate?
It is a huge inquiry, actually. I'm not saying that there aren't ones that are large, like historical abuse, institutional abuse. But this particular inquiry, although the period that it was considering was from 1999 to 2021, we actually had clients that were placed in Muckamore as young children from shortly after it was opened in the early 1950s, right up to now, and are still there. So that, just on the time scale itself, is huge. And then if you think about the size of the hospital itself and the admissions over those many decades, that tells you how many people could potentially be involved. I'm not for 1 minute suggesting that every single one of those was abused or badly treated, but I'm just telling you about the scale of the people who are likely to have been involved and for whose experiences one wants to ask about. So it is a very, very large inquiry indeed. So that's just the people. In terms of what the inquiry had to look at, even if you simply look at the listed forms of abuse, which the chair read out to you, that's a very large breadth of abuse, whether it comes from physical, emotional, sexual, financial, right down to neglect. That's the abuse alone. Then there was a whole host of other things that it had to look at, like systemic failing. So in the scale of things, it's a massive inquiry.
So in terms of legal redress, what happens next?
Well, that's also a very important question, because it's quite easy to identify when it's presented to you what went wrong. Far harder is to establish, well, how will we go about ensuring that what went wrong can be rectified and it doesn't happen again. Legal redress is not always the best way to do that. Of course, to vindicate your rights, it's always there. But before you get to that, you have to have the information provided to you. So you have to have transparency about what's happening. You have to have the right policies that you can use as an instance of what went wrong, and you have to have the right legislation. But the legal redress itself is only one route. And what is so troubling about these sorts of inquiries is that at the heart of it, you feel that it's the families who have to hold the system to account. And that means that those who are preoccupied, as they should be, with caring for their loved ones, now have to adopt another role, which is to hold public authorities to the duties and obligations that they already have. And we already have people who are supposed to do that, institutions who are supposed to do that. So it's very difficult to turn to families and say, well, what sort of legal redress do you think is open to you? Well, of course it's there. If the ability to take it, if the funding to take that legal redress is there, of course it's there. The big question is, should it be? Should it be for the families?
You've been through the hyponatremia inquiry,
Yes.
You've been through the whole duty of candour, all
Yes.
those recommendations. It is so old now. So what confidence have you that here we have another report talking about, other recommendations? The recommendations from hyponatremia still haven't been implemented. So what faith have you got in today and moving forward?
Well, duty of candour was, as I recall, the first recommendation of the hyponatremia inquiry. And that was in 2018, that report, although it didn't start in 2018. I think in order to answer that question, we would have to look very carefully at the details of this report to see what this report has provided when one looks at the granular level and not just the high-level recommendations that will enable us to be able to assess the extent to which it can be delivered. Because that's what these families are really concerned about. They want to know how this will be delivered, when this will be delivered, and who will be delivering it.
Just as a final question there for Lynn, you mentioned that it is a point in the report that the families weren't listened to. How does it feel for you personally and for the other family members represented here today to have, as you said, what you always knew put out there in black and white?
We would be very pleased with that. It's an absolute vindication of what we said. We never made exaggerated claims or false claims. We always got facts together and then attacked. So it's a total vindication, and it's a shame on the entire Belfast Trust and Department of Health on the way they went about caring for or not caring for the vulnerable, and how they investigated their own failures. That's one of the major points. You should never be allowed to investigate your own failures. That's what gives you likes of Muckamore. You need independent oversight all the way, legislative backed up, and robust dealing with staff that misbehave.
Mr. Brown, can I just ask you, you mentioned you wanted an urgent meeting with the Health Minister. What's your message for him? What do you want to achieve from such a meeting?
Well, we want the Health Minister to see, is he going to accept that report in full? We're hearing that other parties are already trying to push back. There's no sense ordering a public inquiry costing millions for everybody concerned that gets criticised to say, I don't agree with that, I'm not at fault. That's the problem. It's the culture that's embedded in the Belfast Trust and above. And until they change that culture, nothing will change, no matter how many reports.
Within the report, there appears to be an element of pushback from the Belfast Trust. I think it ran over 400 pages. How do families feel when they see that level of pushback from an organisation that's responsible for what's in this report?
To be honest, it's outrageous. I can't grasp when an independent body that you set up to establish what happened, what failed the families, that once you're criticised, that your gut reaction is to push back against the recommendations. We would have had more time for them if they honestly owned up and says, look, we were totally incompetent, we never saw any red flag, we never noticed the escalating data that was in front of us, we misread them, nobody looked at the wild abuse of seclusion. If they'd owned up and says, look, that was a disaster, we want to put it right and we're going to start afresh on a new foot, we might have been more welcoming. But we know this is still going to be an uphill battle.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry for the delay, I was coming in.
All right.
Hey, I'm a cookie.
Well done, yeah. Right, still one. Wait.
Oh, no.